Okay, what we're doing is we're ramming up a mold. I filled the lower half of this mold with clay loosely, and now I'm hammering it in. Use a hammer to compact it. If this is doped clay, it will take a lot more detail if you pack it well. Then scrape off my excess. And I'll use that in a future casting. This stuff is pretty reusable, except for what has been burned. And then I'm taking my masters and I'm pressing them in using the bottom of my hammer. I want them to go in nice and straight if I can, and close together. There we go, just getting them all in. And the key is to put them close enough together that you maximize the amount of return you get from each pour. Because really it's the time that is expensive, so you don't really want to be doing this too often. If I was super concerned, oh, that one just totally went in wrong. So I can use my spatula to get it out. Fill back up the hole. I'm going to start again. Much better. Sometimes they go in a little crooked. That'll work out okay, as long as you build up the side. So this one is in slightly crooked. I have to make this side a little lower and this side a little higher, but it should still work just fine. I'll fit about 20 buttons in here. If I was being super frugal and very concerned with getting the maximum amount out of my pour, I would do something like try to do 2 rows of buttons. Let me get these in. I get all the sand packed, or sand clay in this case, packed around the pieces neatly. And then I'll fill up the other half. And I could squeeze in 2 more here, but I'm not going to. Now what I'm going to do is come through once again, scrape everything down. Make sure everything is neat and reasonably compacted. And if I've got any pieces that look like they're slightly undercut or I didn't get quite up to the piece, I mush my clay around just to make sure I'm not leaving any low spots. I come through with a kind of a pick and make sure that I didn't get any clay packed into any of the details, because that won't help things. Next thing I do is I use my talc bag, which is just a sock with some talcum powder in it. Blow it off. And then put the other half in the mold on. Okay, and now I'll be able to fill in the rest of that with more clay. I try to make sure I'm breaking up the little bits. And I crumble it in. You have to be careful not to disturb your pieces in there, but these pieces are pretty firmly packed in. And I can really get in there. And I can pack that clay in tight. You can do this with some specialized tools, a pointed stick, a hammer. It doesn't really matter. A lot of this is whatever works for you. So I'm going to use a hammer because I like hammers. Just like I did on the other half. I really want to get this pretty close to flush. For this particular thing, because they're so shallow, the button heads, it's not a big deal. You don't have to really fill it up. But I do, just because it's the kind of person I am. Alright. Now, I flip it over, and I want to find those pieces. And someplace down the middle, there will be the heads sticking up. So I'm cutting a sprue. I found one. There's one. Here's another one. Most of them will be right down the middle. You shouldn't have too much trouble finding them. Occasionally, though, they wind up in weird spots because they went crooked. There we go. Now the spurs are starting to stick up, so I should be able to get them without any problem. That one's way off. Oh, there's another one. This line seems to have wavered a fair amount. There we go. So I found them. Okay, there we go. Look at that. It's really coming along nicely. Okay. And I can take this now and open it up. Okay, now I'm going to open it up, and hopefully I should have a pretty good mold. Alright, so when I look at it now, I can see that I've got a tiny little bit of clay right here that came off the top. Not an issue at all. Other than that, I got a perfect mold of all of these buttons. So I'm going to set this side away because nothing happens to that half, and this side I need to get the buttons out of. So I do it by holding it up slightly and carefully pushing through. I have a screwdriver that I like to use because it makes a nice button shank. You'll hear them come dropping out. I also hear Lizzie crying. This is the part you have to be reasonably careful with, because if you screw it up here, you have to start again. Okay, well, they should all be out. They are. Now I've got a couple of sort of catastrophic injuries here. So some of them I can just tap back in place. Luckily, we're dealing with the back sides of these. So if there is a problem, you won't see it on the face. This one is reasonably dead. I don't know if that's going to be a salvageable button or not. Alright, so next I just run this screwdriver through, and it helps compact everything nicely. I'm going to run it through from both sides. And this part here is a little off. Would have had a lump on the back of my button. So I just work a little clay in. I can try to repair this one. Never know what's going to happen. It might work. I'm just going to shove some clay there. And cut away. And then put my finger on it from this side and push this through from this side. The reason I'm putting my finger on it is to keep it from blowing out again. And then just keep working my way down the line. Another bit of a blowout here. Remember, these are just the backs, so they don't have to be as neat as the fronts would be. These little problems may cause, these little changes may cause a little bit of flash or something. That's extra metal flowing out from the piece, but it's really not a big deal. And I'm just touching up any spots that look slightly problematic. And then the other thing you can do, you can cut these little vents between the buttons. One thing will help the metal flow a little better. It'll also give the air someplace to go. You gotta force it out. This probably will not have many of them joining together into one long continuous button, but a few of them might. And you can also put some coming off to allow the air to have a place to go. Some of these will flow out and you'll have to trim it off, so you'll want to know that you're doing it for a reason, not just making more work for yourself. But the metal really does force air out, so you'll tend to get better buttons if you, or better product of any kind, if you give the air someplace to go. Alright, at this point, that side's done. Then I clean up this side. Tend to break off excess clay, knock some of it back down into these holes, so I've got to redo this. Lost that one entirely. Okay, then you look down the holes, see if there's any of them that don't look like they're right. They don't look pretty good. Then you check the other side again and you see what you've screwed up by working from this side. And there's always something. Compact stuff on this side. You don't want loose sand traveling into your button, and you have sand inside your button. That's not helpful. It's just basically being detail oriented. The more work you do now, better off your finished product will be. Okay, I can now bring this back. I can bring this back. There's 2 pins on it. I want to be sure I get lined up. There we go. Now I can clamp it and pour it. Right, first step in casting is starting your furnace. Get a piece of paper burning, drop it in, step back. When we first start, the hole should be very black, but when the metal is melted, it'll be glowing bright red. It has melted, and it's really, really hot. And I want to pour in one continuous motion if I can. For the rest, ouch, that really hurt. For future reference, don't do that. So if you want to cool it down a little quicker, you can pour some water on. Mostly I'm doing this to save my mold frame. Not really going to speed up the cooling process, but it will keep my mold frame from burning. Alright, at this point it's time to see what we got, if anything. Take my gloves off. And look at that, a whole bunch of buttons. Not all the buttons, but some buttons. And most of this clay is reusable. The only part that's not reusable really is the really crumbly stuff that's baked all the oil out of it. Right next to it, and it'll be black. So I'm going to cut them and see what I got. Here's one reason to be careful, because you can actually burn your shoe. If you see right here, this is where molten brass splashed on my foot. It's best to wear good shoes that you can kick off in a hurry. You don't really want to get injured doing this. Apparently my mold, or my crucible, has a leak.